Welcome to the debate. When we look at the logistics of deep space exploration, there is this fascinating problem of weight and preservation.
Oh, sure, space food.
Right, exactly. You simply cannot carry fresh food into orbit. You have to extract all the moisture, all the heavy context, until you are left with these tiny, dense, freeze-dried blocks.
Which are essentially completely unpalatable.
Oh, totally. They are chalky, rigid, just gross to eat as is. But they weigh practically nothing, so they survive the journey. To actually consume one, though, you have to rehydrate it.
Right, and today we are applying that exact concept to the hiring process. We are pulling directly from Module 8 of the Living Professional Record, the LPR curriculum. We're looking at interview rehydration.
Yes, because when a candidate sits down in that interview chair, they are essentially carrying a freeze-dried document, right? Their resume.
Exactly. A resume bullet compresses, but an interview answer expands.
So our central question today is about where the primary challenge lies when you are doing that expanding. When you take that compressed resume bullet and turn it into a spoken, dynamic interview answer. Is the core challenge in ensuring total accountability through a comprehensive, structural expansion of the facts?
Or is the true challenge found in the selective governance of what context must be intentionally left out?
Right. So, to be clear on where we stand from the jump, I view interview rehydration primarily as an exercise in accountability and structured expansion to prevent professional inflation.
And I view it primarily as an exercise in governed selection and boundary management, really, to prevent the overexposure of private information.
All right, so let's lay out the foundation of how this actually works in the LPR framework. A resume is inherently a compressed document. It is not the LPR itself.
No, definitely not.
It is just a highly reduced surface, designed to survive the initial sorting mechanisms. The applicant tracking systems, the recruiter screens. But an interview answer rehydrates the record.
It brings back the water.
Exactly. It brings back the complete architecture of the event. The situation, the constraint, the decision, the action, the change, the evidence, and the learning. All of it.
It is a massive shift in formatting, though.
It has to be. I mean, think about it. If the resume says, maintained weekly issue tracker that improved visibility of owners, open items, and follow-up status for the project team.
Right, a standard bullet point.
Yeah, great for paper. But the interview answer should explain what was actually happening, why that tracker mattered, what the client specifically did, who used it, and what changed.
Well, sure, the mechanics matter.
But wait, interview rehydration is what helps the client answer follow-up questions honestly. It keeps the interview surface strictly accountable to the source. Without this full, rigorous structural expansion, candidates just sit in that chair and they panic.
They do sweat a bit, yeah.
They do, and then they resort to generic fluff. Or worse, they start inflating their verbs, right? Because they don't have the architectural weight of the truth to lean on.
Look, I come at it from a different way. I don't disagree that mechanical expansion happens. I mean, that is the literal definition of rehydrating something.
Right.
But the true essence of rendering, especially when you have a living, breathing human being sitting across from you, is governance. Every single rendering must leave something out.
But if you leave too much out...
Let me finish. The text is incredibly clear on this. Rendering is not invention, it is governed selection. Rehydrating a story blindly, just unspooling every detail from your record, it risks breaching privacy, it risks exposing confidential workflows, or, quite frankly, it risks dumping a massive amount of distracting, irrelevant detail onto the listener. Therefore, safe rehydration is about selecting which version of the truth belongs in front of the specific interviewer, prioritizing a public safe rendering over total data unspooling.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. If a resume bullet is a zipped file, right, the interview is unzipping it on their desktop.
Okay, I follow the analogy.
You need to extract all the files for the software to run. If you selectively leave out the constraint, say you omit the fact that it was a period of 40% staff turnover that made the issue tracker necessary, then your action loses its meaning.
Does it though?
Yes, the value pattern becomes totally incomplete. isn't the risk of underclaiming and sounding like a generic corporate robot far greater than the risk of oversharing in an interview setting?
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. Unzipping everything all at once creates an overwhelming data dump. It literally crashes the interviewer's machine.
Oh, come on. Crashes the machine?
It does. The cognitive load in an interview is immense. The interviewer is trying to evaluate if you can solve their problem, not, audit your entire professional existence. The text explicitly warns against including context that is private, confidential, or simply not necessary for the audience.
But they need the details to believe the claim.
They need relevant details. Rehydration isn't restoring all the files from the zip folder. It is intentionally restoring only the files the interviewer actually needs to understand the value pattern, intentionally omitting the rest.
But see, if we lean too far into omission just to, protect the listener's cognitive load, we break accountability to the record.
I disagree that omission breaks accountability.
But the text is absolute on this doctrine. It says, quote, "The surface is not the source. The rendering must answer to the record."
By strictly bringing back the exact evidence and learning from the record, we prevent the candidate from inventing fake claims.
Right, because people do invent things.
Exactly.
Let's look at the onboarding checklist example from the curriculum. Imagine a candidate sitting there. Her sourceback claim in her LPR is created shared onboarding checklist during high turnover, coordinating manager input to improve consistency for new hires.
A highly accountable, precise claim.
Extremely. Now, if she is overly focused on your idea of audience translation, right? If she is trying to govern the story to sound like the high-level visionary she thinks they want,
Inflation. The strict adherence to the mechanics of expansion is what prevents that.
Well, I completely agree that it must answer to the record. Led enterprise transformation is an outright violation. But you can maintain strict accountability while still radically filtering. The two are not mutually exclusive.
How so?
Look at the public safe rendering examples in the text. Let's say she coordinated documentation for a highly confidential healthcare implementation. Her source entry is full of sensitive patient intake data, proprietary billing systems.
Sure, stuff under NDA.
Quote, prove her accountability. She breaches confidentiality. She could literally be sued. The central question the text asks is, what version of the truth belongs here for this audience, for this purpose?
I hear you, but I would frame it differently. I don't disagree that public safe rendering requires stripping out protected nouns. You don't name the client.
Right.
But the architecture of the expansion must remain intact. Even in your regulated healthcare example, she still has to expand on the situation, the constraint, the action.
But she has to abstract the data.
Yes, but the accountability isn't just about the nouns, it's about the structural integrity. If she just says, I worked in a regulated environment, she hasn't rehydrated anything. It's just another compressed surface.
And I would argue that recognizing what to abstract and how to do it without losing that structure is exactly why governance is the primary challenge. Anyone can learn to memorize a list of 7 structural elements.
It takes practice.
It's just a checklist, but knowing how to map proprietary patient intake data to a safe phrase like regulated healthcare implementation without losing the value pattern, that requires intense judgment. The surface changes for the audience, even if the source remains the same.
Okay, but this governance filter you are so fond of hits a massive roadblock when we talk about metrics.
The numbers.
Yes, let's get into the handling of measures during rehydration. The text draws a very clear line between measures of performance and measures of effectiveness.
It's a vital distinction.
Right. Performance is scale or volume. Supported 80 requests per week. Effectiveness is about the change or the value, reducing repeated questions. A robust interview answer needs to rehydrate both to be defensible.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Think of it like explaining a recipe to a chef. You can't just say it tastes good. That is effectiveness. You have to say, I added 2 cups of sugar. That is performance. Doesn't true accountability require both?
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that the text explicitly states an answer may include one or both, but strictly forbids inventing either?
Of course it forbids inventing them.
Right, but pressuring a candidate to always provide both leads to the very inflation the system is designed to prevent.
In the real world, not every valuable action yields a clean quantitative metric.
Sure, not every single one.
So if you pressure them, they panic and invent a fake percentage. They say, I increased efficiency by 30%. If no quantitative metric exists, the rehydration must rely on supported qualitative value.
But
going back to your issue tracker example, the value was improved visibility of owners. There is no percentage there. It's qualitative. And the text notes, no fake percentage, still meaningful.
I am not convinced by that, because you are conflating the invention of evidence with the thorough retrieval of it. Of course, they shouldn't invent a fake 30% increase, but there are almost always performance measures to be retrieved if you dig deep enough.
Such as?
Was the tracker handling 5 issues or 50? Were they coordinating with 3 project owners or 20? Accountability means digging into the record to find that real scale.
But you only retrieve that scale if the audience actually needs it. If they ask a behavioral question about communication, the raw volume of issues is completely secondary. If you dump all those volume metrics into the answer, you distract from the actual value pattern.
But what if the interviewer then leans in and asks, how large was this project? If the candidate hasn't rehydrated those performance metrics in their preparation, they are caught completely off guard.
Now we are finding common ground. I agree entirely that the preparation phase must be comprehensive. But the spoken answer is the governed selection. The preparation is exploring the source. The interview is filtering it.
And my position remains that the filter is only as good as the raw material being expanded. The rigorous expansion is the necessary prerequisite for the truth to even emerge.
And the rigorous governance is the necessary prerequisite for that truth to actually be understood without crashing the listener's brain.
Well, this has been a deeply clarifying exchange. To summarize my stance, I maintain that interview rehydration is a vital mechanism of structural expansion designed to anchor the candidate to the precise situation, actions, and evidence documented in their record.
And I maintain that rehydration is primarily a governed filtering process, where selecting the right context to leave out is just as important as what is expanded.
We do converge on the baseline, though. A resume compresses, an interview expands, and neither surface should ever invent metrics or inflate actions.
Absolutely no fake percentages. We just have continued disagreement over whether the primary focus should be maximizing context retrieval for accountability or filtering context for privacy and audience relevance.
There is immense value in looking at rendering from multiple perspectives. And there is much more to explore in the source material regarding how different renderings, like LinkedIn summaries or portfolio pages, can look completely different while remaining entirely truthful to the same source.
Exactly. Different surfaces, same governed source.
So we will end it there. We leave it to you, the listener, to form your own conclusion on the true challenge of interview rehydration. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.